I no longer know the weight of things, nor of time, nor of longing. Here, where the sky has become the ground, and the ground has dissolved like mist, my body floats aimlessly, but it is the heart that wavers the most. Without gravity, without axis, without the promise of return. I see around me the fragments of the world suspended in the air, like memories that refuse to fall into oblivion. An apple, a doll, an open book with the word hope. Everything frozen in the silent dance of a planet that has forgotten its own strength. It's strange how, when the ground disappears, even guilt seems lighter. And yet, it weighs. My name is Amelia Jane Wilson. I am 45 years old, or was, before time became this unstable liquid that slips between days that no longer know how to begin or end. I was an aerospace engineer for 20 years, passionate about trajectories, orbits, calculations that kept everything in place. I thought I understood the sky. That space was a territory to be conquered with elegance and precision. I was good at what I did. I was called for major decisions, meetings full of confident voices, and eyes shining in the face of the impossible. But none of the equations I learned prepared me to see the very planet sink beneath my feet. I was also a mother. This is the part that weighs the most now, even here, where nothing else falls. My son, Eli, was 9 years old when it all began. He was a little artist of chaos. He loved to draw crying moons, stars talking to trees, planets with broken hearts. Sometimes I think he knew, as if the crooked, colorful lines he left around the house were omens, not just games. In my pockets, I still carry 2 of those drawings, folded 1,000 times, each crease a plea for him to come back. Sometimes, I float with them around me, as if they were compasses in a world with no north. Our house was small but alive. It smelled like bread and sounded like laughter, sometimes his, sometimes mine, sometimes no one's. When he made up jokes just to laugh alone. I worked too much, it's true, but I always came back to him, to his absurd questions and awkward hugs. Now, I wonder how many times I failed to respond properly, how many times I said, "Not now," without knowing that time would make us so absent. If this letter reaches anyone, know this. Before the sky collapsed, I was just a mother trying to keep the world steady for the son I loved. And I failed. It started with small deviations, tides that came earlier, that receded too much. Scientists spoke of transitory anomalies, of natural adjustments in gravity. But we, who looked at the sky for a living, knew something was out of sync. The lunar extractions were going too deep. They were digging into the moon's core with a thirst for infinite energy, ignoring ancient warnings, silent warnings. It was like drilling into the heart of an old, sleeping god and believing he would never wake up. I remember the first meeting where I suggested a pause. They laughed. They said it was fear. They said it was too much emotion for an engineer. And then the moon trembled. Not metaphorically, physically, violently. The tides shattered like mirrors, reflecting what no one wanted to see. The balance was broken. The earth began to bend under the absence of what kept it whole. The coastal cities were the first to scream. One night, New York disappeared beneath a furious ocean. The waters didn't rise. They exploded, as if the sea had been pulled by invisible hands. People tried to run, but the ground was no longer an ally. Some flew. Literally, bodies rose in slow spins, like broken balloons, losing the right to fall. I remember London splitting in half. An entire building floated above the Thames, its mirrors shattering in the air like glass dust. I saw videos of children sleeping in beds, chained to the floor. Entire families with weights on their ankles. No one understood the rule of the new game. It was like living in a dream that refused to make sense. Some laughed at first, creative people trying to turn the apocalypse into a performance. But you don't dance when the ground refuses. You don't live when gravity turns into longing. Every week, anti-gravity zones appeared in different places. First, it was a square. Then, an entire hospital started levitating during heart surgery. People who floated while sleeping and woke up on the ceiling, begging for ropes, for anchors, for something that would say, "You still belong to this world." Mining was suspended too late. The moon bled and the earth cried, but already without tears, without ground, without enough guilt to contain the collapse. Eli disappeared on one of those days. The school was swallowed by the sea, or maybe it simply rose. We never found the bodies. We never knew if there was death or just this endless suspension of everything. I searched for weeks until I understood that searching made no sense anymore. How do you search for something on a planet where even direction has been torn away? Since then, I've lived in this floating field, surrounded by debris that gravity forgot. And every night, every damned night, I wait to hear his voice again, even if it comes from the sky, or from somewhere between time and nothingness. Now we live in pieces of the world that no longer know what the ground is. Gravity has become a whim, an uncertain memory, like the seasons that also stopped coming. Some places still obey, pulling things downward with visible effort, like an old, tired person trying to keep the furniture in place. But others have completely surrendered. In these zones, everything floats. People, memories, dust, promises. I inhabit one of these, a natural anti-gravity field, as they called it, when they were still trying to name the incomprehensible. Here, trees grow in spirals, birds no longer need to flap their wings, and the silence is so absolute, it feels like I can hear my thoughts. The world tried to adapt, of course. Those who remained created magnetic shoes to keep their feet anchored to what little metal was left. They built underground shelters, where the ground still seemed to have some will of its own. They invented clothes with ropes, with weights, with counterbalance systems, a sad dance between creativity and desperation. I saw a child tethered to her mother by a string, like a balloon she refused to let go. I saw old people sleeping, clinging to stones, afraid of floating while they slept and never coming back. In all my life as an engineer, I never imagined that the greatest human breakthrough would be learning how to fall with style. And now, we fall endlessly, or float aimlessly, which hurts more. At this very moment, as I write, I am lying among the ruins of a research station, or what's left of it, suspended a few meters from the ground, surrounded by books that won't descend and droplets of water that never touch the floor. I eat what I can reach. I dress in pieces of what the wind left behind, and I write on sheets of paper that float with me, as if they too wanted to be read by something beyond the air. Sometimes I wonder if I'm dead, and this is just another form of sky, a sky where no one ascends because there's nowhere left to go. But then I feel hunger, cold, longing, and I remember, I'm still human. Even without ground, I'm still made of weight. Sometimes I think we went too far, not out of ambition, but out of loneliness, as if digging into the moon was just a desperate way to fill the emptiness we carried down here. We pierced through sleeping gods, believing they would give us answers, when all they held was silence and weight. Now we live in absence of ground, of direction, of sound, of future. The rain no longer sings on the rooftops, the bells no longer ring, footsteps no longer echo. The world has turned into a floating whisper, and I, a memory hanging in the air. I miss simple things, the smell of wet earth, the sound of Eli running through the house, the letters he drew for me, with smiling suns and moons that hugged me in blue ink. Today, every time I wake up and don't see his face, the universe seems to drift a little further away. There's nowhere to fall, but there are 1,000 ways to get lost. And the cruelest of them all is staying alive when everything you love has already left. If anyone ever finds this letter, perhaps caught on a thread of wind, perhaps floating among the debris in the sky, I ask that you don't forget. The ground once existed. We danced upon it. We fell, we rose. We ran barefoot on the hot earth without fear of floating away. There was weight in things, and that weight gave us meaning. Now, everything is too light to last. But if memory remains in anyone, in some corner of what's left of the world, may it serve as an anchor, not to bring us back, but to remind that we were here, that we loved, that we laughed, that we stood firm, and that for a brief moment in the history of the universe, we belonged.